Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tutor Training. So this training is designed for those of you who are going to be online tutors with the Refuge Education Center. This is our first round of doing online tutoring due to the COVID pandemic. So this is kind of a new training that's been catered to you guys who are new with us, beginning as online tutors. Our usual program is one that is a tutoring program at our center where you meet after school with students and work on their homework in English and math and different subjects. This will be an adapted version of that online. So hopefully you can bear with me as we work through this training together and we work through the kinks of what it means to be an online tutor with us. Hopefully you can see the slides clearly as I go through them. My screen will be in the bottom corner, and I may move it around if there's some issues with seeing some of the wordage on the pages. Just a little background on me. My name is Allison. I've been at the Refuge Education Center for about 4 years now, and my role is kindergarten through 12th grade student programs manager and coordinator. So I work with all of our students that are kindergarten through 12th grade. And we have an after-school tutoring program, which is now our online tutoring program. We have in-school programs that support our middle school and high school students, on-site at school locations, and we also have our summer school program for newcomers. So those are the three main areas that I oversee. And all of those are under the umbrella of Project Faulu. So what you're a part of is Project Faulu. Faulu is Swahili for succeed. So today's training objectives, I'm just going to give a brief overview of Project Faulu, what it entails, our approach of how we go about working with our refugee population and our students and our programs. And then we will jump right into what does the online learning program look like and what resources we have available for you as you embark on this journey with us, some expectations that we have for our volunteers and some tips for success, and as well as some troubleshooting when it comes to technology and working with students online. So Project Faulu, like I said, is Swahili for Succeed. It is a kindergarten through 12th grade program that supports refugee students throughout Kent County and Ottawa County. We serve about 600 students on average every year across all the school districts that are in Kent and Ottawa County. Our programs that we enroll students in focus specifically on English language and literacy, as well as STEM concepts, or STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math is an acronym. And we also have a focus on socio-emotional well-being of our students. And our programs are also specifically designed for children who are coming to the United States either for the first time or transitioning here with their parents, who are experiencing major cultural adjustments and also are working through some past trauma that can make their learning a pretty difficult road. And so we want to come alongside and partner with them. Within our Project Faulu programs, just the next couple of slides are just some stats and figures of success. So 97% of our students have shown increase in reading levels over the course of the programming that they've attended with us. So at the beginning of attending our programs, we do a pre-test, we assess them on their reading, where they're at. And then throughout our programs, we test them again, and we test them at the end of the programs if they're, leaving or moving on, or if our program's coming to a close for the end of the school year. And 97% of them increase in at least one reading level throughout the time with us. 78% of them increase in a letter grade. So another thing that we track throughout the year is we're in communication with the schools that they attend, and so we are collecting grades from those schools, and 78% of them show that they increase in a letter grade throughout any of their major core subjects. And then also we see 100% academic improvement in our school site programming. So at our school locations, which is Riverside Middle School, Burton Middle School, and Union High School, we have seen academic improvement in grades and in literacy levels across the board. So it just shows that attending Project Kahoot, these students are getting the attention and the support that they need academically to really thrive and to take those next steps as students in their academic career. Like I mentioned before, we have our after-school program that usually runs at our main site, which is in Kentwood. That is the program that runs September through June, so throughout the school year, in the afternoons, Monday through Thursdays from 4 to 6. Our school site programs usually happen once a week at our school locations, Burton Middle School and Union High School, also Riverside as well. So those usually are running right now because we're not in session. Those are on pause. And then our Bridges program, which stands for Building Refugee Independence and Delivering Guidance for Educational Success. This is our 7-week summer program. So this is designed specifically for those newly arrival refugees, families, so those that have arrived within the past year who have either just entered into the school system mid-year and are still kind of floundering in that process, or who have yet to enter a classroom, and this is the beginning time of them doing that. So what we do during those 7 weeks is provide a welcoming and safe environment for them to prepare for their learning. And we do this over the summer so that they are ready to begin in the fall. So now our online tutoring program is very new. It started this year, April 2020, and it's a response to all of our students being at home and not having a lot of the support at home that maybe some of our mainstream regular students would have in an environment where English is the first language of the home. And so what we are hoping is that we want to provide one-on-one tutoring with students that are kindergarten through 12th grade. We want to pair up a tutor with a refugee student. We want to provide training, like this training, resources for those tutoring sessions that are specific to the needs of our students. And then any support along the way that's provided by us for you as a tutor to be successful. The requirement is 1 hour once a week, year-round. So as of right now, it is April. We're not thinking of ending this in May at the end of the school year. We would like to see a commitment of, you know, as long, at least through the summer, and then hopefully maybe even through the fall, like a 6-month to 1-year commitment if possible. And again, we're trying to keep it pretty limited of 1 hour once a week. We work with your schedule to determine what time you're available, and then we work with the student schedule to see when they're available. We start off with 1 hour a week, and then if you have more availability than that and you want to meet twice a week with your student, or maybe you want to meet with multiple students throughout the week, we would love that. We always have a waiting list full of students that need more tutors. So that is kind of the basic structure and setup. And so as we go into a setting where we're working with students online, maybe students that you've never met before and aren't familiar with working with an English language learner, I just have the next couple of slides are just a few ways that you can approach thinking about working with language learners online. So the first thing is just defining some of our terms. So I've been saying English language learner. We refer to all of our students and their families as language learners because learning language is not just a 1-year, 2-year process. You're a language learner possibly your whole life. You never stop learning a language. So we kind of call our students our ELLs, our English language learners. ESL stands for English as a second language. Some of our students may have English as their second language, but a lot of them, English is their third or fourth or fifth language. So a lot of those students actually don't qualify for ESL as a term, more just English language learner. SLIFE is another term that we use, and a lot of our students are SLIFE students, which stands for Limited or Interrupted Formal Education. So maybe some of our students have started off in 1st or 2nd grade, and then maybe they had to move, or maybe they were transferred to a refugee camp, and in the camp there was patchy education system set up, and so maybe they missed a grade or missed several grades, and then they were moving again. And so you know, they may have learned their numbers and counting and maybe addition, multiplication, but maybe they never learned division, and it's just this pocket of interrupted education that, you know, we find out later that they're missing some of those core subjects and core content. And then L1 transfer refers to when we apply knowledge from one language and shift it over to another language. So for example, your students, just because they may not be able to say something in English, may not mean that they don't know it in their home language. So for example, they may know about the solar system and they may know about planets, but they may know that in Swahili, but then they don't know it in English yet. Once they know it in English, then they'll be able to share their knowledge once they know that vocabulary. This next slide just kind of shows us a bit of what it means to be from a culture and then move into a new culture. So on this one side, you see native culture. There's a lot of things that make up each of our own native cultures, and it's a huge part of who we are and our identity. You know, the climate that we live in, the family and value system, our sense of belonging to a certain community, who are our people, what are our value system and moral system, what kind of education I've received, whether that's formal or informal. And because our students are all from refugee backgrounds, they've all experienced some form of denied access or discrimination or trauma. And when our students move to the United States, all of these parts of who they are, this culture, they carry this with them, and it's completely part of their identity. And now they're entering into a new place where those two identities are conjoining and melding together. And you know, some pieces are still going to stay. Some pieces may be released. New pieces may be taken on. And as you can see in this slide, and I'll move my little video over. There's elements of our American climate, especially West Michigan, that is a lot to transition to and very different than home cultures. There's a huge language barrier and cultural barrier. A sense of belonging is very disrupted. The education system is very different here and maybe more rigorous in some ways than it was before. The value system that we have is very different. And then due to the fact that our families are refugee families and they're going to be lower income and relying on social services, they will still, and even, you know, their race and the color of their skin, they will still experience discrimination and denied access to certain things. And along the way, we'll be experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder and different traumas that will pop up along the way. So these are just things that we want to be aware of as our families come to us in our programs. Another thing that we want to be aware of is within the American education system, as students come to the United States and start school, there's so much that's put on their backs and so much that it's expected of them. So as you can see from left to right, WIDA, that's a test that the students take when they first get to school. It's a test that assesses their reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and then places them on a scale from 1 to 5, kind of telling you what their level is. And then from there, they're put into an ESL class, so like an English as a second language class, where they're getting, you know, some extra help in their language. But then pretty much everything else, all the other classes that they're taking are with everybody else, mainstreamed, and they are under the Michigan Common Core standards like everyone else, and they have to take the M-STEP and then the NWEA, which are standardized tests that everyone else takes. And also right now, because STEAM or STEM is a very significant part of learning and being really pushed in strongly into schools, that's also something that our language learners are having to grow and learn in really quickly. You know, and when you're learning science vocabulary, it's really tricky to learn it in a different language for the first time and kind of get up to speed. So it's a lot of pressure for these students to come into a school and be expected to learn so much so quickly and catch up. And it's especially hard for some of our older students, maybe those that are 4th or 5th grade and up. who may have a lot to learn still and a lot to step into. So our goal at the Refuge Education Center is to teach students about academics, but not just focusing just purely on academics. We want to really engage them in discussion and conversation and learning around social constructs and culture and value systems, how to make decisions, how to handle things socio-emotionally that come up. And our responsibility as an organization and as volunteers and as members of this group that is working with refugee families and students is to create a safe space for these students to practice these skills, to fail, to make mistakes, to get back up, to learn from them, and equip them to become conscientious community members. So that's really our goal and our responsibility as we approach any student that's in our program. And so hopefully as you approach the students that you're going to be working with online, you can keep these things in mind as you work with them. So how do we do this? This is kind of our model of how we seek to approach our students in this. We know that they experience a lot of pressure, they experience a lot of outside stimuli and expectations, and so what we want to do is first we want to create a safe structure for learning, a place where they feel that they are free to express themselves, that mistakes are not frowned upon, but that we encourage them and we're gracious and we're excited for them. And we want to come alongside them and train and equip volunteers and community members to be a part of that. And we want to, as we do that, we want to make sure that we are paying attention to where they're at academically. What are those areas that you missed along the way? What are those areas that we need to learn and grow in? And what are some ways that we can adapt content to their learning and really teach problem solving in that? So, for example, if a student has some homework from school or has something that's like long division and they've never done that before and they're so overwhelmed, we're not going to try to just hone in on long division until they're blue in the face. Let's back up. Let's go to multiplication. Do we know how to group things into different groups and break it down? Do we know, if we don't know how to do that, let's go back to addition. So really adapting to starting from the basics and working up. And then as we do that, and I'll move my screen again so that you can see this other piece. As we do that, you'll see that kids will run into triggers and challenges and conflicts and ways that they're going to get frustrated when they're learning and they don't understand something or they're not getting it and you're trying really hard and kind of working through that. Hey, what does it look like to be frustrated while you're learning, and what are some tools that you can have, whether that's learning how to take a deep breath and learning how to slowly problem solve at something and maybe taking a break and coming back at it, or talking it out with a friend, even if there's like peer-to-peer conflict that's involved. So working through those things together and using those moments as teachable moments. And then all throughout this process, we want to make sure that we're still keeping in close communication with home and school. So making sure that families know what we're working on with students, that schools know what we're working on with students. We keep really that open communication between everybody. All right, so to be an online tutor with us, I just have a few notes here of what that means and what we expect of you guys. So first, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure that you build a relationship of safety and trust. And we know that, when you're working with a language learner, someone who has limited English abilities, this can seem kind of challenging because you may not be able to have a full-fledged conversation with a student because their English is limited. So how can you build safety and trust? Even something as simple as when you're starting to work with them, when you're getting to know them, start off with a little fun game or a little stretching exercise where they can see you, even just sitting in your chair doing a stretch or doing something, where you're both doing it together, just showing that you're willing to meet them halfway and have a mutual conversation while you're still the adult and you're still, the one that is the educator for them, but just showing them that you really care. And you can also do that with positive affirmation, you're doing a great job, you know, being really precise in the ways that you cheer for them and work alongside them. By being an online tutor, you are also supporting a student's growth and learning from home. We know that this is very challenging versus working with them in a school setting or working with them at the center, where you may have myself or other volunteers around you to help out. And we know that this is a big task that you're taking on, and we are applauding you for that, and we're here to support you in that. That one-on-one attention, so giving students the one-on-one attention they need to progress, it's huge. Their parents may not speak the language, may not have a level of literacy even in their home language, and so they may not be able to help them ever academically in their American schooling. So you giving them that one attention, paying attention to them, sitting down and realizing, okay, this child doesn't know their multiplication by twos, and we're going to hone in on that. You may be the first adult that sits down and pays attention to them all day. So it's a huge gift that you're giving to them, and a huge commitment. Again, like I mentioned before, you'll be personalizing content to match the student's ability level. I'll give you kind of an idea of, when I match you with a student, what ability level they may be at. I may say, hey, they're at about a 2nd grade level of reading, or yeah, maybe the 3rd grade level of math. And you can kind of go from there, but a lot of times you're kind of figuring it out on your way, right? So you're checking for understanding, making sure that you are really honing in on those areas that you're seeing the child struggle and working with them on those areas. You're also creating a space together with the child of creativity and imagination. So we know that online tutoring is something that we're going to have to be creative with, right? So we're not in the same room with each other, so being creative in the ways that we display certain things, whether that's flashcards or whether that's vocabulary words or doing an activity together, it will require a little bit more of a brain muscle of working that creativity, but there's also really great ways that we can engage students. And I'm on your side, and I'm on your team, and any creative ways that I find that are successful, I will definitely send your way. And you are positioning yourself as a direct resource to the student in collaboration with us. So you are on the front lines, you're working with that student directly, and then any feedback that you have, or any ways that you're like, oh, this is clunky or not working, or I wish I had this and this, come to us, and you're the spokesperson for that child. In some ways, you're the advocate for them as you work with them on their learning. Before you begin as a volunteer, I just want to make sure that you have checked all these boxes, just so that you feel ready and prepared to be an online tutor. So first, make sure that you have turned everything into Abdi. Any of the paperwork that's required, make sure that you get that to him. He also has 3 other training sessions like this one, that are being offered. So make sure that you complete those. We've got Refugee 101, cross-cultural competency, and psychological first aid. So make sure that you complete those 3 as well as this one before starting to be a tutor. The next slide, I'll show you some videos that I've linked that are more practical specifics of how you can train with, or how you can be a volunteer tutor with our students, what that's like a schedule would look like for your hour of time with them, kind of more of those practical things. A huge resource that will be a huge resource to you is LiveBinder. So LiveBinder, I'll show you the link later, will have a bunch of different tabs in it. I want you to make sure that you go to those tabs beforehand, really look at what the website resources are. They're all free to use, so make sure you have those and you have something prepared ahead of time for your session. You can't go into a training online or a tutoring session online cold. If you don't have anything prepared, if you don't have flashcards ready, if you don't have basic materials that I mentioned on the video, if you don't have them, you're going to feel really ill prepared. And the purpose of the tutoring session isn't just to converse with a student. How are you doing? Okay, cool. We want to be really intentional, and so make sure that you're coming prepared. And that may take a bit of preparation beforehand, right? You may spend 15-20 minutes making some flashcards or printing something out, and it will take some prep beforehand. So just know ahead of time that you'll want to do that, and you'll want to prepare yourself by looking at those resources. I will be, like I mentioned before, pairing you with a family. I'll give you their contact information. We'll establish a weekly time that you meet, for example, Tuesday at 2. That means you'll always meet from 2 to 3 with that student on Tuesdays. I'll also give you the student level, like I mentioned before. You will have to download the required online tutoring platform. So most of our students, their families have phones that are smartphones. A lot of them do not have computers yet. So we will be relying on the students using their smartphones to communicate with you. You can use your smartphone if you would like. You can use the computer at your home if you would like. We're starting out by using WhatsApp, which is an app, like a texting, chat, video app that a lot of the families already use and have. From there, if you would like to transition to Zoom, that would also be great. Zoom does have some better qualities, and like I'm recording this on Zoom right now, and you can see my screen, you can see me talking, and then that kind of helps with some interactive pieces, just a little bit easier to use for tutoring. So you can easily send a Zoom link to a student via WhatsApp in the Messenger section. You can send them a link, and they don't need a phone number to access that. They can just open it up and start a Zoom chat with you. The free version is only about 40 minutes. It cuts you off a lot of times. Sometimes it doesn't, but it can cut you off. You'll just have to reopen it if you want to do the full hour. You can just resend them a link again, and it'll continue you after that. We are working at getting Zoom for the Refuge Education Center, a paid version. So once we have that, I can share the details with that, so you won't have to just be cut off at 40 minutes. And then make sure that you have, like I said before, all the necessary materials ahead of time before your first lesson. That will just help you feel prepared and help you feel like you know what you're doing with your student. All right, so these are just the basic requirements that we have for a tutoring session. We do recognize that a lot of these students are not getting a lot of exercise at home these days. So if you can start off with a simple stretch or exercise, in the video that I linked in the next coming slides, I have some resources there that you can use for that. Vocabulary and English language activities. So there always has to be something that has to do with building the child's vocabulary, and also building their literacy level. So any kind of reading activity of words or flashcards for English, that always has to be included in your session. And then also some kind of math activity needs to be included in your session. And there's so many different ways you can engage them with that as well. And then the state of Michigan requires that we do 15 minutes minimum of reading with students each time we meet with them. I would say if you can do 15 to 30, that would be great. And I have reading resources that you can use, again, in the tutorial videos that I mentioned later. Also, optionally, if you want to play a game with your student as you're getting to know them, maybe something creative, even something, I don't know, as simple as like Simon Says or something like that. Again, use your creativity and imagination. Online tutoring is a new platform and a new thing. So as I get ideas, I will send them your way. Also, science and social studies. These are trickier to do online, but hey, if you have a science experiment that requires simple things like a pencil and an eraser and a piece of paper and water and a paper clip, maybe the kids have that at home and they can do it together with you over your session together. Ideally, the total session time is 1 hour. You may go over time, you may go under, but try to keep it at a full hour if possible. Okay, so here are the resources that I've been talking about throughout this training. So this first resource, if you click on it, it will bring you to a YouTube channel. We have a Refuge Education Center YouTube channel that you can access. On it right now, there are just a few videos, but we'll be adding some more. So this video here is just of me talking to you about different materials, resources that you can use. some key tips and reminders, some few things that weren't included in this training that I gave you. So just make sure you check that out. Secondly, if you go to this link, it will bring you again to our YouTube channel, where Holly Beecham, our longstanding volunteer who has been working with our library, she's very enthusiastic about reading to our students and teaching you guys how to be interactive readers with them. So this is best practices for interactive read alouds. She just gives you a lot of great tips on how to be a good reader and how to interact with your students in that. If you go to our channel, you'll see a few other videos on there. We have a parent guide for parents at home to work at. We have a staying at home for students. I made one just for the kids for days that you're not going to be tutoring them. They can follow this kind of a schedule themselves. Also, under our subscriptions, you will also see Storyline Online. So if you go to Storyline Online on your own, or if you go to it through our subscriptions, you'll see there's a ton of different famous actors and different people that read to you. So if you want Betty White to read Harry and the Dirty Dog, you can send this link to your student to read. You can just copy paste this link into the WhatsApp chat that you're using with your student to communicate with them, and you can say, hey, why don't you watch this throughout the week, you know, as homework. Watch Betty White read this story to you, and it's a really great way for them to get involved that way. The third link that I have in my PowerPoint over here, this one right here, is our live binder. So I already have it pulled up over here. So in the live binder, we see these different tabs along the top here. Each of those is a different website. So if you go to this first one, there will be site words. So you can either go to the website directly by clicking this, and it'll open up in a new tab, or you can just stay here because it's also embedded inside this live binder link. So in here, if you're working with someone at a second grade level, these are words that you can have them practice. You can write them out on flashcards, or you can go up here and they have the flashcards for you. You can click on the flashcard spot if you want to make them quarter page. If you have a printer at home, you can print these out. You can go to second grade, it'll download the PDF, and then you can print directly from here these sight words that then you can practice on your screen with your students when you're working with them. This will also help you when you're showing it on the screen, that it'll be in the right direction for them to read. So you can print those out, or you can write them out by hand, whatever you prefer. This other tab, if you go back up to the top, home learning lessons, this is actually from a website called Seesaw, which a lot of our kindergarten through second grade students in the GRPS school system are going to be using. So you can go in here and say, okay, I want to have a drawing, you know, a writing or a drawing activity. You can follow the directions. This is like a mini lesson that you can do. Or this one's really fun, a shape hunt. So go around your house and maybe you're talking about shapes with them, find the different shapes and show them to you throughout their house. So, oh, I see a rectangle, or oh, I see a circle up there. So that kind of thing. You can do something like that with them just to make it more interactive. And there's some really good ideas all along here that are leveled by ability level. You'll see we've got first grade right here and the like. Next in here, this is K5 Learning. They've got a ton of resources that are not just reading comprehension. You'll see there's a bunch of math worksheets in here as well. If you go to that, there's a bunch of them in here by grade. But what I want to show you, and there's vocabulary, there's spelling, a ton of different flashcards in here as well. But what I want you to see is the reading comprehension. So if you go in here, if you don't have a book at home, this can be really helpful to you. So if you don't have a book to show your child and read with them, you can go here. You can pick by grade over here. So let's say you're working with a 9th grader that is kind of at a 3rd grade reading level. You can go to grade 3 worksheets, and within here you can look at different ones. You can do leveled stories, you can do children's stories, or you can do fables. They kind of just categorize them for you. You can just go and click on one, and then it'll bring you out to a list of those stories. And it tells you how many words. So if you want to do one that's a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, whatever you want to do, let's go into landforms, and it'll show you a picture of it. You can click on it, it'll open it up to a PDF, and you can actually, if you're using Zoom, you can screen share your screen with the student, and they can read it to you. So from the screen, they can read this, or you can read it to them. But with these reading comprehension ones, if you can get it to a point where you're sharing the screen, then you guys can read it together, and that would be really great. So you read through it, and then at the end there's some questions that you can ask and work through together. There's also the answers at the bottom to help you out. Some of the younger ones have like vocabulary activities that you can go along with it. So hopefully that is helpful for you. And then also in this live binder, I'm going to skip Kahoot for a second. We've got math flashcards. So in here, you can create your own math flashcards. So let's say you're working on subtraction with your student. You go in here. Let's say you want to work on subtraction of 3s and 9s. You want them to range from 0 to 12 digit, and then let's just do 4 per page. Cut lines, yes, and then you're going to create. And then this will literally create some flashcards for you. You can print these out directly from here using the printer, or you can just copy them onto pieces of paper at home. It gives you an idea of which ones to work on with them, and you can use those. Then over here, again, just another resource for you. This one doesn't show up in the website, so you have to click on it yourself. And in here, we've got, you can look at these different tabs of flashcards. There's also ones listed down here. If you want to do days of the week flashcards with them, you can come in here and you can look at the days of the week flashcards. You can download them here, or you can click on them and download them and print them. Let me see how you do that. Go to the download page. There's some directions on downloading them right here. So I won't walk you through all of that right now, but it's a pretty painless process. Lastly, Kahoot. So Kahoot is a quiz type of game that you can play with your students. You can do it from your end. You can play against them, that sort of thing. So what you'll want to do is you want to log in. And I have an account that you can already use, so you don't have to create your own. When you log in, you're going to use the, I'm already logging in on my own. I kind of wanted to show you how to log in. But basically right here, you're going to use Rec 2020 for your email and the username and the password. So put Rec 2020 both for the username and the password when it asks you to log in. Then it's going to pull this up right here. Once you get to this space, you click on Kahoots. I have already grabbed a bunch of different ones that you can use that are already pre-made. I have them under favorites, I believe. They're coming. All right, so then in here, you can click any of these. So maybe you want to do a capitalization. You want to do a capitalization quiz with your students. So you come in, you press play, and it's going to give you the option, play a live game together with learners over video or class, or assign games. We're going to do this one, play with the students, and then we're going to do a game one-on-one with them. So we're not doing teams, we're doing this classic option. And right now it's loading. Of course, it's not letting me in right now, but basically you'll be able to click on Classic. It'll load. What it'll pull up is, oh, here we go, Classic. And then there will be a code that you can share the code number with your student. They can plunk that in on their Kahoot. They will have to download the Kahoot app on their phone if they're using a phone. So this is the number right here. They will plunk that into their Kahoot app, and then they will start, and then it'll be a little quiz that you can do together that's timed, and I can't walk you through the whole thing right now, but basically you can try it out if it's a fun way to play a game with your student together. And there's music to it. All right, so that's pretty much what's in the live binder right now. I may be adding more things as I find more creative lessons online that you can use. But that is basically what I wanted to show you as far as your resources that you have available here for you. All right, at the end of your session, I want you to log what you worked on with your student for that day. So make sure that you have, and I'll send you a version of this in a Google Doc form. But just put the date and what you worked on with your student. I have a little sample of what this looks like. I put like a little example here. So Faustin entered the tutoring session looking a bit tired. We did a Just Dance video together to warm up, and then jumped into some vocabulary flashcards of body parts that we, as reviewed from last week. He remembered most of the words except for elbow and ankle. We then worked on multiplying by 7 using a whiteboard. He is still struggling with these, so I had him practice grouping dried beans that he had home in his kitchen. Again, they might not have great educational materials, so make sure that you get creative. Maybe they use beans or rice or noodles that they have at home, dried noodles. And then we ended the session reading a read aloud comprehension from the comprehension page from the live binder. So like the ones that I showed you earlier. All right. Here's just some expectations and best practices for success. So how you can be best successful with your students. Make sure that you're on time for each of your sessions, that you're calling the student when you say you're going to call them. This doesn't mean that they're going to be on time, but you showing up on time will be helpful for them to establish a schedule. Be prepared with your materials. I can't stress that enough. Dress appropriately. I may or may not have pajama bottoms or sweatpants on underneath this, but I am looking nice up on the top. And so just make sure that you are prepared that way as well. Make sure that you're visible to the student so that you're sitting in front of your camera and that you're clear, your screen is clear so that when you're showing them things, those things are visible. Make sure that you can even see yourself possibly so that you can see where you're putting things. You're not doing it off to the side over here where they can't see it. I would say always do a quick review of what you did the previous week and check for understanding. Keep the same rhythm and flow each week so they know what to expect. So if you always do English first, then start with English every time. If you do your reading last or if you do your math last, always do that. Just keep it scheduled. Be specific in the way that you give feedback and praise. Like I mentioned earlier, it's really helpful, especially over online learning, that the students know that you are for them and that you're establishing trust and relationship in that way. And then at the end of the session, fill out your student log. You'll just keep a running log of that, and I'll ask for it at the end of each month, just so that I can check with what you've been doing with that. Troubleshooting. We know that this is a new age and a new time of technology, so if you're having any trouble, please contact me. You're not in it alone. Feel free to give me a call. My working hours are usually between 10 and 5, Monday through Thursdays. So feel free to give me a call in those times and also email me. That is it for this session. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that everything is clear, and I look forward to having you as a tutor with us. So here we go. Thanks for joining.